The 50-30-20 rule for budgeting. These magic rules will get you on track to be richer in just 30 days. Hey guys, Ron Parks here and welcome back to the channel. Radio host Dave Ramsey famously said, "A budget is telling your money where to go instead of you wondering where it went." And today I want to talk about a budget strategy that can help you save up to 20 to 50% of your monthly income. But let's start with the basics. How many people do you know who keep track of their spending habits? Well, it turns out that those elementary school lessons teaching you how to balance a checkbook were a lot more important than you think, because too often people don't realize that their daily spending habits may be leading them into the welfare office. And some might just consider borrowing just to make ends meet. But even borrowing isn't a long-term solution. It's just a stopgap measure at best. And the emotional burden of debt is one of its most stark realities. It's critical to create and follow a spending plan if you want to help secure your financial future. And there's only one answer that makes any sense. The only way to ensure a financially stable lifestyle is to invest and save more than you spend. You don't have to go too far in today's America without running into the average hardworking family who regularly goes broke just a few days after they receive their paycheck. This is a hard cycle to break, but an incredibly important one. And so we return to Mr. Ramsey's words. Let's start telling your money where to go, shall we? So what is the 50-30-20 rule? You may have heard about the 50-30-20 rule of budgeting, but you don't get the specifics without asking. Essentially, the rule sums up a budgeting plan that can help you maintain and track your income. Before you can finally tune your financial intelligence, you need to learn how to manage your finances. This will eventually allow you to create more investments and diversify your sources of income. The recommended spending plan is relatively straightforward. The rule has an excellent pragmatic approach. You should commit 50% of your income to your essential needs, 30% of your income to your wants, and 20% into your savings. Follow this and you're more likely to build wealth faster and learn how to use these techniques throughout your lives. It's strange to think that something as simple as keeping a clear record of your spending habits, the kind of thing you first encounter when it comes to money, gets so lost along the way. But bills that seem insignificant, especially when they're just automatically paid every month, can pile up much more than you actually realize. Advertising and marketing executives were on fire the day that they figured out yearly fees only look scarier than monthly ones. So whether you need help managing those everyday bills, or you're saving for a rainy day, or have some more lofty long-term goals, the 50-30-20 rule is the easiest way to ensure a worry-free financial plan. So where did the 50-30-20 come from? So now that you've been introduced to the concept, well, it's time for a short history lesson. Harvard bankruptcy expert and U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, with her daughter Amelia Warren, released a book entitled All Your Worth: The Ultimate Lifetime Money Plan. In it, Elizabeth and Amelia examined 20 years of financial history to understand better an everyday part of American life, the need to get our daily finances in check. Their main conclusions revolved around this very plan, and we don't need to give you a rundown of Senator Warren's credentials. So get a piece of paper and write down the 3 most important points you need to know when enacting the 50-30-20 budget plan. So let's dive in. This budgeting plan divides your after-tax income into 3 categories. These are the essentials you must have to survive, your wants and desires, and your savings and investments. So rule 1, devote 50% of your income to essential needs. Now, necessities are the expenses that you can't avoid. This portion of your budget should cover costs such as housing, food, transportation, basic utilities, insurance, minimum loan payments. Anything beyond the minimum goes into the savings and debt repayment bucket. And childcare or other expenses that need to be covered so you can go to work. The path to financial freedom starts here. It's not hard to pare down the bare essentials of modern life: food, water, shelter. And these days, you may as well throw in the internet, cell phones, and maybe even a few streaming services. We work every day to take care of these needs, and provided that you have an earnings, this budget plan maintains a perfect balance to cut down on unnecessary expenses. Now, Rule 2. We've spent 50% on your necessities. Now spend 30% of your income for your wants. Now we get to the fun stuff. What good is living if you don't have some things to stimulate you emotionally and intellectually? In our current climate, we're spending a lot of time alone. We all need some external stimulation to keep us happy and on track. Distinguishing between needs and wants isn't always easy and can vary from one person to another. Generally, though, wants are the extras that aren't essential to living and working. Some financial experts don't feel this category is necessary, but I digress. If you're anything like me, exercise, books, and the next season of Stranger Things, they matter. But there's only a certain amount you can allow yourself if you want to be financially prudent. So start asking yourself if you want what you're going to shell out for. I don't consider a cell phone a want, considering no one has a landline anymore. But you might be a gamer. You might also be a musician. It's about whatever you want. Such things like gym memberships, weekend trips, shopping, clubbing, and dining out with friends. This is part entirely up to you. But the fewer items that you have in this category, the better, because it allows you to put more money in the third bucket, which is Rule 3. Rule 3 says that 20% of your income should go into your savings and paying down debt. Savings and investments are the amount you sock away to prepare for the future. Devote this chunk of your income to paying down existing debt and creating a comfortable financial cushion to avoid taking on future debt. So how to use this part of your budget depends on your situation, but it will likely include starting and growing an emergency fund. At least 6 months of your expenses put away in a liquid account so you can have access to it really fast. Saving for retirement through a 401k and perhaps an individual retirement account. And paying off debt, beginning with the most toxic, high interest types. Your savings are there for a reason, whether it's for emergencies or planning retirement. Now, that might not sound urgent. After all, you're young and charming with a fantastic sense of humor. However, these days, most financial advisors will tell you to start planning for retirement as early as 35, if not sooner. And the best way to do this is to start saving early, and that begins with that 20% we've been talking about. Start saving very early, especially in fixed deposits, and you'll earn compounded interest that will help your finances grow in ways you never imagined. With that 20% of your income put away for the next 10 years, you'll be close to being a millionaire. You know, you hear these horror stories about addictions to spending, and it can be a serious condition. But if you treat it properly, that same kind of euphoric rush can come from watching your accounts grow. So how to budget with the 50-30-20 rule? Follow these steps to implement the budgeting. Step 1, analyze your spending habits. Naturally, before you know how the rule will affect you, you need to understand your spending habits and how you want to budget them. And that starts with asking yourself, in what areas in my life do I spend the most money? How much goes towards eating out? How much goes towards dining in? And how much of the dining is takeout? Start by making a list of where your money goes every paycheck. It may be your rent, food, transportation, and utility bills. Write down how much these bills exhaust from your income in a month and write down the numbers. Now you know the exact amount spent on your essential needs. Step 2, single out the large expenses that always go into your wants. So now it's time to work on your want list. We've already established what you want, so let's see how much it's running you every month. We're dealing with clothes, movies, amusement parks, music, that 4K Blu-ray of The Fifth Element you just can't get enough of. So take a look at your credit card statements over the last few months and fetch out any common trends on your expenses. Marilyn Monroe once said that before leaving the house, she'd turn around and the first item of jewelry that stood out, she'd take it off. So look at your wants list the same way. If there's a glaring expense that you can do without, nix it as fast as possible. Budget 30% of your income towards these wants and leave the rest behind. Or maybe accept that the fifth element is overrated. I'm not saying that this won't be a complex and even daunting list to make. It can be a little stunning when you realize just how much of your money winds up squandered in careless ways you always assumed you had covered. Ideally, you want to work out which of your wants you can cut back on to contain the 30% of your take-home income. Remember, these 3 steps are interrelated, and the fewer items on your wants list, the more you'll be able to put towards the ever so elusive 20%. It will undoubtedly be tempting to fall back on your old ways, maybe bring back some old habits and desires, but that's where I urge you to stay healthy. Remember the Swedish proverb, "He who buys what he does not need steals from himself." If you find you spend too much money eating out, well, maybe consider catching breakfast on the run and wake up a little earlier to cook it. Bring lunch to work. That's 2 meals formally eaten out that you just saved around $20 a day on. And once we're out of this pandemic, perhaps it might be high time to reinvent yourself a little. Sober bars are springing up and gaining popularity, or merely having a potluck or party rather than a pricey night out at a club will get you closer to the last step. So get ready, because I want you to underline this. Step 3, be addicted to saving 20% of your income per month. Don't save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. Warren Buffett said that this rule could not be laid out any simpler. Anyone can faithfully adhere to the budgeting rule and still lead a pretty comfortable life. And I'll throw one more quote in at you. Life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. John Lennon was rarely wrong, and you're going to want to be sure the unexpected doesn't upend your entire existence. Now, advertisers and salespeople, they run a pretty lovely racket, and it's easy to fall under their spell. But fidelity to the plan and some good old-fashioned self-control can make all the difference. It's quite simple. You want to make this 3rd step in practice the first thing you do. Just make it mandatory to transfer 20% of your after-tax income to your savings or fixed deposit accounts before you worry about the other 2 steps. We can't sugarcoat this. It may initially look like this kind of plan is too limiting or too restrictive, and maybe you feel you deserve that ridiculous car you've been eyeing. We can't make these decisions for you, but after you've witnessed the money pile up in your accounts after just a few months, the last thing on your mind will be complaining. So let's look at an example of the 50-30-20 budget plan. Let's say your after-tax income every month is $10,000. That means 50% goes to needs, so $5,000 needs to be allocated. We can reasonably assume $2,000 will settle your monthly rent bill. And then you can split the remaining $3,000 among your food, beverage needs, utilities, transportation, and minimum credit card payments. In any case, if you're spending more than $2,000 a month on rent, well, you're living a charmed life. Remember, your goal is to allocate all these expenses into 50% of your take-home after-tax income. And now you can spend the other 30%, which is $3,000 a month, on your wants, whatever they may be. Now that's quite a bit per month, with plenty of wiggle room. You may, of course, not make so much money, and you'll need to adjust accordingly, but the principles are still the same. Also, this might be something to consider given the current circumstances today. There are plenty of ways to have fun and entertain yourselves that don't cost an arm and a leg. I know more than one person who has attempted their sourdough loaf while under quarantine, and not only is it rewarding, think of what you'll save by making food from scratch. So take advantage of the era of remote work and Zoom calls. Embrace a new hobby. Now comes that ever so crucial 20% or $2,000 of the $10,000. It feels almost that it's mocking you a little, taunting you to spend it on something frivolous. These feelings pass. Just get comfortable with the fact that you're going to save a bundle. Put that $2,000 into your savings so it can later be used to solve your occasional needs like health maintenance, emergencies, and debts when they're set. You can also put this 20% towards things like investments, but we'll be getting into specifics about that when we talk more in depth about retirement in another episode. So the benefits of this 50-30-20 budget, I think I've laid out a pretty solid case, but perhaps you haven't quite seen the benefits yet. So here's what you might not be seeing. Number one, it gives you the freedom to manage income wisely and sets you on the path to financial freedom. Number two, and here's a question whose answer may surprise you. Do you remember the last time you touched physical money? Especially today, some places don't even take cash, and you pay for almost everything with credit cards. It's too easy to feel as though you spent nothing when you tapped out your debit card with a scanner. But those impulse buys add up. So the 50-30-20 plan allows you to track your expenses and see how you may be mismanaging your money. Okay, number three, simply having a savings account will allow you to make investments for your future. And after 6 months of applying this rule, you stand to be 5 times richer. I know it sounds like I'm just giving you platitudes, but I can't tell you how many times I've gone over someone's financial statements and realized they had no idea how much they were wasting. The better decisions you make, the more you can invest in a comfortable retirement. So that's the basics of the 50-30-20 rule. Put 50% towards your actual necessities to live, put 30% away for your wants, and put 20% away for savings and investments. And if your wants and desires are less than 30%, then put more money into your savings and retirement accounts. I know this sounds pretty simple, but you'd be surprised how difficult it is for people to actually budget and allocate money the way that we've just discussed. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, I would appreciate it if you can smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe. And until next time, thanks.